At 45, I had finally achieved a stability I never imagined possible during my youth. As a senior investment analyst at one of the country's largest brokerages, my name, Laura Mendez, was synonymous with reliability and results. My apartment, in the financial district, overlooked the park and had just enough space for me, exactly how I liked it. Solitude had been a long-time companion, not for lack of opportunities, but by deliberate choice after years of trying to prove my worth to those who should have loved me unconditionally. Growing up as the eldest daughter in the Mendez family meant being the first to deal with my parents' excessive expectations. My sister Jenny arrived 5 years after me, bringing a subtle but profound change in family dynamics. While I was pressured for perfect grades, Jenny was celebrated just for participating. While I saved from my first paycheck for college, Jenny received a car at 16. The disparity was so obvious that even relatives commented, but my parents justified it with ready-made phrases. Laura is strong. She can manage on her own. Jenny needs more support. I left home at 18 with a partial college scholarship and 3 jobs to cover the rest. What should have been a moment of pride turned into a bitter departure when I overheard my father telling my mother, thinking I wasn't around. Thank God she's leaving. Now we can focus on Jenny without Laura constantly competing for attention. That night, I recorded those words on my old cell phone, not for revenge, but as a reminder to never again beg for love from those unwilling to give it. In the following years, we reduced contact to the bare minimum. Birthday cards, an occasional Christmas visit, brief calls. I built my career with almost obsessive determination, as if each promotion was a small triumph against their low expectations of me. It worked. At 45, I was responsible for managing the fortunes of premium clients, with an unshakable reputation in the market. That's when I received a call from my grandmother Helena, the only person in the family who always treated me equally. Her voice, now fragile at 87, still carried the same direct clarity I admired. Laura, dear, I need to tell you something. Your parents are scheming. I held my breath. Grandma Helena's calls were rare and never frivolous. They sold the house. Did you know that? No, I replied, genuinely surprised. The house where I grew up, a 3-bedroom home in a traditional neighborhood, was my parents' greatest pride. The idea of them getting rid of that property seemed inconceivable. They sold it for an exceptional amount. The neighborhood has appreciated a lot, she continued. And now they're staying at your sister's house, temporarily. And why should? That concerned me, Grandma. I heard a tired sigh on the other end of the line. Because I heard Eduardo, my father, saying that now it's your turn to help. They're planning to ask to live with you. Actually, they want you to buy a bigger house, for all of you to live together. Jenny would keep the money from the sale of their house to pay off her mortgage. I felt a familiar tingling in my fingertips, the same sensation I had when identifying a high-risk but potentially profitable investment opportunity. It wasn't anger, it was alertness. When do they plan to tell me this? They're organizing a housewarming dinner at Jenny's new house this weekend. They'll announce that they sold the house and then make the proposal. Laura, they talk as if it's already certain that you'll accept. Your father said something like, Laura has money to spare. It's our right to benefit from it too. An unusual calm washed over me. It wasn't the first time they had made assumptions about me without consulting me, but it would be the last. Grandma, did you receive an invitation to this dinner? Yes, dear, on Sunday. And me? There was an uncomfortable pause. I believe they'll call you today or tomorrow. They're leaving it until the last moment so you won't be able to refuse. I thanked my grandmother, promised to visit her soon, and hung up. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. The name Mom flashed on the screen, like an omen. Laura, it's been so long. My mother's artificial voice of enthusiasm came through the phone. We miss you. We're having a housewarming dinner at Jenny's new house this Sunday. Can you come? I noticed how she avoided mentioning the sale of their own house or any details about their plans. Classic. First the emotional manipulation, then the blow. Of course, Mom. I wouldn't miss it for anything. My voice sounded warmer than I felt. What time should I arrive? She seemed momentarily disconcerted by my quick acceptance, but recovered. 7 is fine. I'll send the address by message. Perfect. I'll be there. I hung up and looked out the window at the city skyline. For 27 years I had kept the peace, swallowing disappointments and justifying the unequal treatment. Now, at 45, with my career established and financial independence achieved through so much effort, they wanted to reap what they hadn't sown. I opened my laptop and began preparing a document. No, it wouldn't be an emotional confrontation or an explosion of accumulated resentment. It would be something much more efficient, a presentation of facts, contracts, and numbers. I was an investment analyst after all, and I was about to make the most important analysis of my life. That night, I didn't cry as I would have in the past. I remained quiet, organized, and determined. If they wanted to use me as a retirement plan without my consent, they would have. A surprise. A meticulously planned surprise. The Thursday following my mother's call, I requested 2 days off work, something I rarely did. My boss, Ricardo, raised his eyebrows in surprise when I entered his office with the request. Laura Mendez. Wanting time off? Will the financial market collapse? He joked, but his eyes showed genuine concern. In 15 years with the company, I had never requested leave outside of scheduled vacations. Family matters, I replied succinctly. I need to organize some issues before they become problems. Ricardo nodded, without asking further questions. This was one of the reasons why our professional partnership worked so well. Respect for each other's space and decisions. Of course, no problem. The Montero and Silvera clients have meetings scheduled for Friday, but I can ask Gustavo to take over. That won't be necessary. I've already prepared all the analyses and left the reports ready. Gustavo will just need to present them. I sent everything to his email with detailed instructions. Ricardo smiled. Efficient as always. Is everything really okay, Laura? For a moment, I considered sharing what was happening. Ricardo was more than a boss. After so many years, he was almost a friend. But decades of emotional restraint had created barriers difficult to break down. It will be, I replied, with more confidence than I actually felt. That afternoon, I made 3 important calls to my lawyer, my accountant, and my real estate agent. I provided precise information and requested specific documents urgently. Then, I dove into the files I had kept meticulously organized since I was 18. There was everything. Bank statements showing I never received financial help from my parents during college, while I found generous transfers to Jenny's account. Proof of expensive gifts for my sister, in contrast to the generic cards I received. And, most importantly, the recording from that fateful night when I left home, digitally archived and preserved through the years. The next day, I visited my grandmother, Helena. At 87, she remained as insightful as ever, only her body showing signs of fragility. Her small apartment was a haven of honesty amid complex family dynamics. "You're going to confront them on Sunday, aren't you?" she asked as soon as we sat down with tea on the porch. "Yes," I replied simply. She studied me over her cup. "I see something different in you, Laura. It's not anger. It's determination." "I'm tired, Grandma. Tired of being the family's ATM when they need it and the forgotten daughter when they don't. For years I thought the problem was with me, that I wasn't warm or lovable enough. But I realized it was never about me. It was about what I could offer." "Your mother called yesterday," Helena commented. "Said she's looking forward to seeing you on Sunday. That she has big news to share." I took a sip of tea to hide my ironic smile. "I bet she does. What are you going to do?" I put the cup on the table and took out my folder. "I'm going to show them exactly who I am. No shouting, no drama, just facts." I opened the folder and revealed the documents I had prepared. Helena adjusted her glasses and examined them carefully. My God, Laura, this is fair, I completed. It's simply fair. Helena took my hand in hers, her wrinkled fingers surprisingly firm. You know, I always wondered when you would finally take a stand. I feared it would never happen, that you would spend your entire life trying to buy their love. Her eyes welled up, and I realized how much my grandmother had suffered watching the treatment I received over the years. Why did you never say anything? I asked. Because some lessons we need to learn on our own. If I had interfered, you might have listened to me, but you wouldn't have really understood. It needed to be your decision. Before I left, Helena gave me a small wooden box. This belonged to your grandfather. He wanted you to have it when the time was right. I think that time has come. Inside the box was a silver pocket watch with an inscription on the inner lid. Time reveals the truth to those who know how to wait. On Saturday, I received an email from my real estate agent with preliminary documents about my new investment, an even larger and more luxurious apartment just for myself. The reports from my accountant also arrived, detailing every penny I earned over the last 27 years and how I built my assets without any family help. My lawyer sent a legal memo on housing rights and family obligations, basically confirming that I had no legal obligation to provide housing for my parents, regardless of their expectations or family ties. He also attached a carefully drafted statement outlining my financial independence and the boundaries I intended to establish. That evening, while organizing my documents for the next day, I received a text message from Jenny. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Mom and Dad have such great news to share with everyone. I wondered if my sister was complicit in their scheme or merely an unwitting beneficiary. Either way, tomorrow would bring clarity to everyone. Before going to bed, I checked my investment portfolio one last time. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, managing millions for clients who trusted my judgment implicitly, while my own family saw me merely as a financial resource to be tapped. The disparity between my professional respect and familial disregard had never seemed starker. As I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt an unexpected sense of peace wash over me. For years, I had carried the weight of unspoken resentment, always hoping for recognition that never came. Tomorrow, I would finally set that burden down, not with anger or vengeance, but with dignity and truth. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I woke before my alarm, feeling surprisingly rested. I dressed with particular care, choosing a tailored charcoal suit that I normally reserved for important client presentations, which in a way, this was. I styled my hair in its usual neat bun, applied minimal makeup, and put on the pearl earrings my grandmother had given me for my 30th birthday. As I prepared to leave, I noticed something unusual, the absence of anxiety. In its place was a calm certainty. I knew what I had to do, and for once, I wasn't second-guessing myself or worrying about others' approval. On my way to Jenny's house, I made one unexpected stop. The florist near my apartment had just received fresh white lilies, my grandmother's favorite. I purchased a bouquet, not for the dinner hosts, but for Helena. I would deliver them tomorrow after everything was done. That afternoon, as I drove to Jenny's new house in the suburbs, I rehearsed what I would say one final time. No accusations, no emotional outbursts, just facts and boundaries presented with the same professional clarity I brought to my work. The folder beside me contained everything I needed: financial records, legal documents, and a small digital recorder containing the audio from that night 27 years ago. As I pulled into the driveway of my sister's impressive new colonial-style home, I noticed my parents' car already there, along with several others I recognized as belonging to extended family. Perfect. Witnesses would make this harder to dismiss or deny later. I checked my watch, the silver pocket watch from my grandfather, and noted I was exactly on time. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my purse and the discreet folder, then made my way to the front door. The moment I rang the doorbell, I discovered something unexpected within myself. I was no longer the desperate daughter seeking approval. I was Laura Mendez, senior investment analyst, a woman who had built her life on her own terms, and no one, not even family, would dictate those terms anymore. It was time, a ton. Confrontation and turnaround. Jenny opened the door with her trademark effusive greeting, pulling me into a perfunctory hug that felt more performative than genuine. "Laura, you made it! Everyone's already here." Her eyes flickered to the folder in my hand. "Working on a Sunday? That's so you." I smiled politely. Some things can't wait. The living room was filled with familiar faces, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, holding court in the center. My mother spotted me first, her face lighting up with an enthusiasm I knew all too well, the kind reserved for public appearances. "Laura, come in, come in. Doesn't Jenny's new house look amazing? 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and that gorgeous backyard." I nodded appreciatively as I took in the spacious room with its new furniture and expensive finishes. "It's beautiful. Jenny, congratulations." My father approached, giving me an awkward side hug. "The successful daughter finally joins us. How's the market treating you these days? Making millions for your clients?" "The market is unpredictable, as always," I replied, evenly, "but I manage risk well." That earned a hearty laugh from him, though I hadn't intended it as a joke. The next hour passed in a blur of small talk and appetizers. I observed my parents closely, noting how they kept exchanging glances and checking the time, clearly waiting for the right moment for their big announcement. Meanwhile, I maintained a pleasant demeanor, answering questions about work and deflecting inquiries about my personal life with practiced ease. Finally, after dinner had been served and enjoyed, my father clinked his glass with a spoon, calling for attention. The room quieted as everyone turned toward him. "We have some exciting news to share with everyone," he began, his arm around my mother's shoulders. "As many of you know, we've lived in our house for over 30 years. So many memories there, raising our 2 wonderful daughters." He paused, looking fondly at Jenny, then briefly at me. "But times change, and we've decided it's time for us to change too. Last month, we sold the house." A murmur rippled through the room. My Aunt Marta looked particularly surprised. "But you always said you'd never leave that house. It was your retirement plan." My mother stepped in smoothly. "We had a better opportunity come along. The neighborhood has appreciated tremendously, and we received an offer we couldn't refuse." "So where will you live?" my cousin David asked. This was it, the moment they'd been building toward. My father cleared his throat, his eyes finding mine across the room. "Well, that's part of our announcement. We've been staying with Jenny temporarily, but we believe families should support each other as we age. Laura," he turned to face me directly, "you've been blessed with such financial success. You have that small apartment downtown, but with your resources, you could easily afford a larger home, one where we could all live together as a family." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me, some curious, others uncomfortable. I set down my dessert fork carefully and met my father's gaze. "And what happened to the money from selling your house?" I asked calmly. My mother shifted in her seat. "Well, dear, we've already allocated those funds. Jenny and Tom's mortgage was quite substantial, and we felt it was important to help them secure their future." "I see," I said, reaching for the folder I'd kept beside me all evening. "So you sold your home, gave the proceeds to Jenny, and now expect me to purchase a larger home where you both can live with me, rent-free?" My father's expression hardened slightly. "Laura, it's not just about money. It's about family taking care of family. You have more than enough." "And what makes you so certain of my financial situation?" I asked, opening the folder and removing a neatly organized set of documents. "Everyone knows investment analysts make a fortune," he said dismissively. "And you've always been so frugal. Unlike your sister, you don't have children to support." I nodded slowly. "I'd like to share something with everyone," if that's all right. Without waiting for permission, I stood and moved to the head of the table. First, I want to congratulate Jenny on her beautiful new home. It truly is lovely. Jenny beamed, clearly relieved that I wasn't making a scene. I also want to clarify some misconceptions about my financial success and frugality, I continued. I placed the first document on the table, my college loan statements showing the final payment made just 5 years ago. I financed my own education entirely. No help, no family loans, no parental contributions. I placed down another document. Here are my bank statements from those years, showing the 3 jobs I worked simultaneously while maintaining a 3.9 GPA. My father shifted uncomfortably. Laura, is this really necessary? We're celebrating tonight, not having a financial review. I believe it is necessary, I replied evenly. Especially since you're making financial plans that involve me without my input. I turned to the rest of the family. Did you know that on the night I left for college, my father said, and I quote, "Thank God she's leaving. Now we can focus." On Jenny without Laura constantly competing for attention? My mother gasped. That's not true. Eduardo would never say such a thing. Without breaking eye contact, I removed a small digital recorder from my pocket and pressed play. My father's voice, younger but unmistakable, filled the room with those exact words, followed by my mother's response. I know. She's always been so demanding. Jenny needs us more. The color drained from my parents' faces. My aunts and uncles exchanged shocked glances. I kept this recording for 27 years, I said quietly. Not to use as a weapon, but as a reminder to never again place my worth in the hands of those who couldn't see it. I placed another document on the table, a recent statement from my investment portfolio. You're right about one thing, Dad. I have been successful, but not because of any advantages given to me. Rather, despite the distinct lack of them. And my frugality wasn't a personality quirk. It was necessity, born from knowing I had no safety net. My sister, looking genuinely distressed, reached for my hand. Laura, I had no idea. I gave her a small smile. I know, Jenny. This isn't about blaming you. You were a child too. Turning back to my parents, I continued, I won't be buying a house for us to live in together. In fact, I just purchased a new luxury apartment for myself. The papers will be finalized next week. I slid the preliminary agreement across the table. 3 bedrooms overlooking the river. More than enough space for me and the life I've built. My father's face reddened. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I asked, my voice still calm but firm. When have you ever put my needs first? When have you ever celebrated my successes without immediately asking what financial benefit they might bring you? An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. My mother, always concerned with appearances, attempted damage control. Laura, dear, you're overreacting. Family helps family. That's all we're asking. No, I corrected her gently. You're not asking. You sold your house, gave the money to Jenny, and assumed I would cover your housing costs without even consulting me. That's not asking. That's presuming. I gathered my documents and returned them to the folder. I've spent my entire adult life trying to earn the love and recognition you freely gave my sister. Today, I'm done trying. I've built a good life, a successful career, and meaningful relationships with people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. My Aunt Marta, always my father's harshest critic, slowly began to applaud. It's about time someone said it, she murmured. What are we supposed to do now? My father demanded, his voice rising. Where are we supposed to live? That, I said calmly, is a question you should have asked before selling your house. But if you're genuinely concerned, I've taken the liberty of preparing some options. I removed a final document from my folder, a list of retirement communities and affordable senior housing options I'd researched. My financial advisor helped compile these. They're all within your budget, assuming you still have some proceeds from the house sale. I placed the list on the table and closed my folder. I'm not abandoning you. I'm simply establishing boundaries that should have existed long ago. Jenny, looking genuinely remorseful, spoke up. Mom, Dad, Laura's right. I had no idea about any of this. If you need to stay with us longer until you figure things out, you can. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The daughter they'd favored was offering a temporary solution, while the daughter they'd counted on to solve their problems permanently was walking away. I think I'll head home now, I said, gathering my purse and the folder. Jenny, thank you. For dinner. It was lovely. As I moved toward the door, my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Time reveals the truth to those who know how to wait. How right she had been. My cousin David followed me out. That was impressive, he said quietly. Are you okay? I surprised myself with my answer. Actually, I am. Better than I've been in a long time. That night, driving back to my apartment, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. The burden I'd carried for decades, the need for validation, the resentment, the pain of rejection, had finally been set down. Not through explosive anger or bitter recrimination, but through simple truth. The next morning, I delivered the white lilies to my grandmother as promised. When I told her what had happened, she held my hand and smiled. You know what your grandfather used to say? The strongest houses aren't built on sandy foundations. You've built your life on solid ground, Laura. Your own ground. In the weeks that followed, the family dynamics shifted dramatically. Some relatives, long uncomfortable with how I'd been treated, reached out to strengthen our connection. Others, loyal to my parents, maintained a chilly distance. My parents themselves cycled through anger, bargaining, and finally a reluctant acceptance when they realized I wouldn't be moved. They ended up purchasing a small condominium with what remained of their house proceeds after helping Jenny. It wasn't what they had planned, but it was comfortable and within their means. Our relationship remained distant but civil, a vast improvement over the unbalanced dynamic that had existed before. At work, Ricardo noticed the change in me immediately. Whatever those family matters were, he remarked, they seemed to have agreed with you. You look unburdened. I am, I replied. I finally stopped carrying expectations that were never mine to bear. 6 months later, Ricardo approached me with an unexpected proposal, a partnership position in the firm, heading a new division focused on sustainable investments. You've always had the analytical skills, he said. But now you have something. Equally important, authentic confidence. Clients respond to that. I accepted the position, and within a year, my division had become the fastest growing segment of the business. Articles were written about our innovative approach, and I was invited to speak at conferences I once would have attended anonymously. Sitting in the back row, at one such conference, I ran into Jenny. She'd come to hear me speak, she said. We had begun rebuilding our relationship, slowly, carefully, on more equal footing than ever before. I'm proud of you, she told me afterward. I always was, but I never really understood what you went through. Mom and Dad, they created a narrative that suited them. I believed it because it was easier than questioning. We were both just playing the roles assigned to us, I replied. But we get to write our own stories now. As I approach 50, I look back on that Sunday dinner as the dividing line in my life. Not because it changed my circumstances dramatically, but because it changed how I saw myself. I was no longer the overlooked daughter seeking validation, but a woman who had built her life brick by solid brick through determination and resilience. The house I built wasn't made of wood and stone. It was constructed of choices, boundaries, and self-respect. And unlike the home I grew up in, its foundation was unshakable. I didn't need to scream to be heard. I didn't need to destroy to rebuild. I simply needed to stand firmly in my truth and let time do the rest. After all, as my grandfather's watch reminded me, time reveals all truths to those patient enough to wait for them. In the end, the greatest revenge wasn't confrontation or retribution. It was living well, on my own terms, free from the desperate need for approval that had shadowed my earlier years. That freedom, hard-won and precious, was the most luxurious home I could have built for myself, and one no one could ever take away.